experienced one of the most awkward trophy ceremonies in tennis history at the French Open. Coco Gauff completely ignored her during the celebration, and the reason why is causing massive controversy across the tennis world. What Aryna said in her post-match interview angered Coco so much that she decided the best response was public dismissal. The tension was visible, the disrespect was intentional, and Aryna became the laughingstock of the audience. Here's my question for you. When someone diminishes your victory by saying they beat themselves, is ignoring them the right move, or should you confront them directly? Let me know below. Coco Gauff just won the French Open with a dominant performance, and she was understandably ecstatic. She celebrated so enthusiastically that she actually dropped the lid of the trophy on the ground because she was so excited. That's the kind of pure joy you love to see from champions. Genuine, unfiltered happiness about achieving time to accept the award during the official ceremony. Something shifted. Coco seemed cautious, guarded even, and most noticeably, she directly ignored Aryna Sabalenka. Not just a brief cold shoulder, but a deliberate, public dismissal that everyone watching could see. The tennis world immediately started asking why Coco would treat the runner-up that way during what's supposed to be a moment of sportsmanship and mutual respect. Aryna said in her post-match interview. And honestly, what she said was pretty inexcusable if you're Coco Gauff. Aryna essentially credited her own mistakes for Coco's victory rather than acknowledging Coco's performance as the reason she won. That's about as disrespectful as you can get to someone who just beat you in a Grand Slam final.
How does she do that and make things difficult for you?
By running and playing those high balls from the frame. And honestly, sometimes it felt like she was hitting the ball from the frame. Somehow, magically, the ball lands in the court, and you kind of like on the back foot, and yeah, it's just, you know, like it felt like a joke. Honestly, like someone from above was just like staying there laughing and you know, like, oh, let's see if you can handle this, you know. And I couldn't today, and she won the match not because she played incredible, just because I made all of those mistakes.
Aryna said she believed that her mistakes made Coco win the game, not Coco's performance. Read that again. Her mistakes made Coco win, not Coco's superior play, not Coco's strategy, not Coco executing at a higher level, just Aryna beating herself. That's the narrative Aryna pushed immediately after losing.
Another tough final in the Grand Slam against Coco, another terrible performance from me against Coco in the final, and yeah, I have to just kind of like step back and look at this from the perspective and try to finally learn the lesson, because I cannot go out there every time against her in the finals of the Grand Slam and play such terrible tennis and give those wins. She literally just put an extra ball on the other side than I did, so. Like, it was a joke, for real. Like, when she would hit the ball, at some point, the wind would just, like, let the ball fly like crazy. And, you know, I was late every time, plus clay court, plus, like, a bit of wrong bounces. And I was like, you know, honestly, guys, it's the worst match I played in the last, I don't know, couple months. It's just a joke, and I cannot do that anymore.
But it gets worse. Aryna also mentioned that if Iga Świątek had defeated her in the semifinals, then Iga would have won the final against Coco. So not only is she saying she beat herself, she's also saying that if a different opponent had made it to the final, Coco would have lost. Basically, Aryna is arguing that Coco's French Open title is less about Coco being great and more about Aryna having an off day and Iga not making it through.
I don't know. I think if Iga would win me another day, I think she would go out today and she would get the win. It just, you know, like, yeah.
I mean, I don't agree with that. I'm here sitting here, and last time I played, no, like to Iga or anything, but I played her and I won in straight sets. So, but yeah, I think regardless of who I played, I think I had a good shot to win, and I definitely had that belief. And if you ask me, like, honestly speaking to you guys, who I wanted to play was Iga, just because I felt Aryna was playing so good, and she was. So, but also Iga is a tough opponent too. So honestly, neither of them would have been a better shot, but you know, it played out how it played out, and yeah, that's why I'm here today.
That's an absolutely wild take from someone who just lost. And Coco clearly sensed that Aryna was not recognizing her strength or giving her proper credit for the victory. So Coco made a decision. As the winner, the best thing to do was not actively interact with Aryna and let that awkwardness speak for itself. And it worked. The moment became incredibly uncomfortable for Aryna. She's standing there at the trophy ceremony, probably expecting the usual cordial interactions that happen between finalists, and Coco is just completely dismissing her presence. That's a power move that sends a clear message without saying a single word. In response to Aryna's comments, Coco eventually expressed her disagreement publicly. She claimed that it was her strength that won the game, not Aryna's mistakes. She also added that Aryna was her strongest opponent, which is actually a really clever way to handle it, because it simultaneously gives Aryna credit while also making it clear that Coco beat the best version of Aryna, not some error-filled disaster. That last part, calling Aryna her strongest opponent, actually made Aryna look even worse because it highlighted the contradiction. If you're the strongest opponent and you still lost, then clearly the winner was just better than you. It's not about mistakes at that point. It's about one player being superior when it mattered most. The audience picked up on all of this, and Aryna became a bit of a laughingstock for how she handled defeat. Because here's the thing, losing with grace is part of being a professional athlete. You can be disappointed, you can be frustrated internally, but publicly, you acknowledge that your opponent played well and earned the victory. That's basic sportsmanship that every athlete learns early in their career. But Aryna chose a different path. She chose to diminish Coco's achievement by framing the match as something she lost rather than something Coco won. And that distinction matters enormously to the person who just achieved their dream of winning a Grand Slam title. Coco Gauff is 21 years old and just won the French Open. That's a career-defining moment. She's worked her entire life for that trophy, that title, that validation that she's one of the best players in the world. And within minutes of achieving it, the person she beat is telling the media that it wasn't really about Coco being great. It was about Aryna making mistakes. That's infuriating. Of course, Coco ignored her during the trophy ceremony. What else was she supposed to do? Smile and pretend everything was fine? Act grateful that Aryna let her win by making errors? Absolutely not. The cold shoulder was the appropriate response to that level of disrespect. And let's be clear about what actually happened in that match. Coco Gauff played phenomenal tennis. She was aggressive when she needed to be. She defended brilliantly when required. She served well in crucial moments, and she executed her game plan effectively. That's what winning a Grand Slam final requires. Playing your best tennis when the pressure is highest. Yes, Aryna made some errors. Every tennis match involves errors from both players. That's the nature of the sport. But to reduce Coco's victory to just Aryna made mistakes is ridiculous and insulting. Coco forced those errors with her shot placement, her pace, her court positioning. That's what good tennis players do. They make their opponents uncomfortable and force them into mistakes. Aryna's comment about Iga Świątek potentially beating Coco if she'd made the final is pure speculation and completely irrelevant. Iga didn't make the final. Aryna did. Aryna had the opportunity to win the French Open and she didn't get it done. Bringing up hypotheticals about other players is just deflection from her own failure to perform when it mattered. This isn't the first time we've seen this kind of poor sportsmanship from players who lose big matches. Some athletes just cannot accept that they were beaten by someone better on that day. Their ego won't allow them to acknowledge their opponent's superiority, so they create narratives about their own mistakes or external factors or anything except the simple truth that they got outplayed. The irony is that Aryna actually made things worse for herself with those comments. If she'd just given Coco proper credit and acknowledged that Coco was the better player that day, everyone moves on and focuses on Coco's achievement. Instead, Aryna created a secondary storyline about her poor sportsmanship, which now becomes part of the narrative around Coco's French Open victory. And that trophy ceremony moment will be remembered. Tennis fans will look back at Coco's French Open win and recall how she straight up ignored Aryna during the celebration because of the disrespectful comments. That's now part of Aryna's legacy associated with that tournament. Coco handled it perfectly, though. She didn't create a scene. She didn't publicly blast Aryna in the immediate aftermath. She just made her feelings known through her actions, or more specifically, through her lack of action toward Aryna. The message was clear without being dramatic. When Coco did eventually address it verbally, she did so in a way that was classy but firm. She disagreed with Aryna's assessment, stated that her own strength won the match, and gave Aryna credit for being a tough opponent. That's how you handle disrespect without lowering yourself to the other person's level. The comment about Aryna being her strongest opponent was particularly smart because it reframes the entire narrative. Instead of Aryna beat herself, it becomes Coco beat the strongest possible opponent. One narrative diminishes Coco's achievement, the other elevates it. Coco made sure the correct narrative prevailed. This situation also highlights something important about women's tennis right now. There's incredible talent at the top of the game, and these players are competing fiercely against each other, but there also needs to be mutual respect. You can be fierce competitors on court and still acknowledge each other's abilities off-court. Aryna's comments suggest she doesn't fully respect Coco's game, which is bizarre considering Coco just beat her in a Grand Slam final. If you don't respect someone's game, don't lose to them. But if you do lose, then clearly they had something you couldn't handle that day. The French Open is one of the most prestigious tournaments in tennis. Winning it means something. It's not a fluke, it's not luck, it's not just your opponent having a bad day. It's about sustaining excellent tennis over 2 weeks against the best players in the world. Coco did that. She earned that title. For Aryna to diminish that achievement with her comments shows a lack of class and a lack of perspective about what it takes to win at that level. And Coco's response, ignoring her during the trophy ceremony, was a public statement that she wasn't going to pretend those comments were acceptable. The tennis community largely sided with Coco on this. Players, commentators, and fans recognized that Aryna's comments were out of line and that Coco's cold shoulder was justified. Nobody expects players to be best friends, but there's a baseline level of respect that should exist, and Aryna fell short of that. This incident will probably affect how these two interact in future matches. There's now established tension between them that didn't necessarily exist before. Coco knows that Aryna doesn't fully respect her game. Aryna knows that Coco publicly dismissed her because of it. That creates an interesting dynamic for their rivalry going forward. And it is a rivalry now. They're both elite players who will face each other in big tournaments. The stakes in their matches just got higher because there's personal animosity layered on top of the competitive drive. That can make for compelling tennis, but it also means their interactions will be scrutinized more closely. Aryna might look back on this and regret how she handled it. Or she might double down and maintain that she beat herself rather than giving Coco credit. Either way, the damage is done. She's now known as the player who couldn't graciously accept defeat and tried to diminish her opponent's achievement. Coco, meanwhile, comes out of this looking strong and mature. She let her tennis do the talking during the match, then let her actions speak during the trophy ceremony, and finally addressed it verbally in a way that was assertive without being petty. That's championship-level maturity to go along with championship-level tennis. The dropped trophy lid at the beginning of the ceremony symbolizes the pure joy Coco felt about winning. That's what this moment should have been about, celebrating an incredible achievement. Instead, Aryna's comments created unnecessary drama and tension that overshadowed what should have been purely positive. Aryna Sabalenka tried to diminish Coco Gauff's French Open victory by saying she beat herself, and Coco responded by completely ignoring her during the trophy ceremony. The awkwardness was intentional, the message was clear, and Aryna became a laughingstock for her poor sportsmanship. If you think Coco handled this perfectly, or if you disagree, hit that like button and subscribe for more tennis drama breakdowns. Because when disrespect gets publicly dismissed, that's content worth watching.